Hello, everyone. Today we are working on evaluating communication, and I would like to remind those who were at the webinar yesterday from my colleague that this is the series of webinars Prepare for New Ukrainian School, created by the Lingvist company and Cambridge University Press. My name is Tania Shelepko. I am Cambridge University Press CLT consultant in Ukraine. And again, today's topic is evaluating communication. What will we cover today? It's about teenagers. We will remember what it is, remind ourselves what it is to be a teenager and what difficulties might be there. The second point today to cover is about goals and problems in teaching communication. And these will also include goals and problems of evaluating how our students communicate. Another one, cognitive processes in speaking. We will look a little bit at how the brain works while speaking. Speaking as a competence, actually, which is communication. And we will have a few practical principles and tips about how to work with communicative tasks and how to evaluate them. And we will look at some activities as usual. So to start with, before we go directly to the topic, there are questions about. Okay, there are questions about yesterday's webinar. Please email my colleague Irina, who left her contacts there, and she will send you the contact form, and she will have another emailing if there is a problem with all of your certificates. As for today, you will receive the certificate in the thank you letter after you fill out the form. Also, after the end of the webinar, there will be a green button which you press, and you will go directly to the form to fill out. After that, you will be able to download your certificate there. If you have any troubles with that, please contact us, and we will send you, the links. Okay, another one. Is there a problem with the sound? Can you put a plus, those who can hear me? Okay. All good with the sound. Let's move on. So as for the beginning, here is a slide, and when we think about teenagers, thanks a lot for all the pluses. I'm glad that I'm audible. So when we think about teenagers, the first thing, as for me, is they are emotional, they are rebellious, but my main word that would describe work with teenagers is rewarding. And once you start it, it's difficult to come back to the adults, actually, because working with teenagers is the most rewarding thing ever. And we actually see how emotionally they open they are, and at the same time it means they are vulnerable emotionally as well. And whenever I think about teenagers, I usually imagine it like okay, I lost the picture. Yeah, like this. All of them have their own culture. Well, these are teenagers most probably from the 90s, but anyways, they all have their own ways of communication, their own ways of interaction. And all of us, if we think about it, if we recall those years when we were teenagers, we can say that, yeah, we had different culture, and it was different from us today, from teenagers today, and it was also different from the teenagers that were adults when we were young. And my favorite quotation about teenagers is by, do you know who's this at the picture? Can you type in the chat if you recognize this person? I'll repeat. So if you recognize who this is on the slide, yes, Antonina Kravchenko, thank you very much. Yeah, this is George Orwell, and he once said that every generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than the one that went before it, and wiser than the one that comes after it. So George Orwell is one of the greatest futurists, I would say, the one who predicted a lot about the life today. And he had such a wonderful thought that shows us that we were not different in the sense of it. And another person talking about teenagers was John Savage, and I do recommend you this book. You can find it on Google Books somewhere. In this book, he describes different subcultures of teenagers starting from 1875 till 1945. That was in the USA, but at the same time, when you look at this book, you will see that most teenagers do create their own culture. And the main question, why? And the answer would be that they are not satisfied with the world around them. And in these subcultural groups, they are trying to create the world that will satisfy them. And we are those who created the world that doesn't satisfy them. So it is important to listen to the teenagers, because sometimes they might have much more critical thought than we do. They have this clearer vision of what is right and what is wrong with this world, considering there are so many things that we got used to that shouldn't be there in this world. So what can we do? We can't teach them some specific things, but we can teach them the main communication strategies, for sure, the main values of how to stay people in any circumstances. With all this, we do need to get rid of this thing that actually is something really widespread. Yeah, juvenoia. This is a term created by David Finkelhor. He was writing different researches about teenagers, not only teenagers, but about different social problems, and he was looking at juvenoia as a kind of phobia when older generations are well, hostile, yeah, towards the younger generation. And this is something that any generation goes through, right? And we need to sometimes stop and think about it, that is it really the problem of a teenager, or am I just being experiencing juvenoia? Okay, Another problem that is now really urgent, I'd say, I love how Stephen Fry talks about it, that internet is dangerous, telephones are dangerous. And what can we do with it? Well, internet is as dangerous, he says, as any city. And there are museums in the cities, there are cinemas in the cities, there are beautiful places and parks, but at the same time there are dangerous zones where no one should go. And what does it mean? That should we stop letting our students go in the city or go in the internet because they can be harmed there? No, of course no. What we have to do is to let them at times make mistakes, but most of the times we should teach them and direct them where they should go and how this can be a great resource for their self-education and self-understanding as well. And we need to remember that teenagers these days, of course, communicate differently than we did when we were young. And what it means, just the fact that we need to teach them differently and we need to understand their communication language. And here I'm talking not about the language as a subject, here English or Ukrainian, but I'm talking here about what they communicate, what their problem is, what their messages are today. And considering the fact that communication became much faster these days and sometimes less emotional, we also need to pay attention to that and bring the emotion back to it. So now, talking about goals and problems in teaching speaking. The main goals would be students should actually talk a lot. And another one, language should be on the level. Now, I have a task for you. Note down 3 problems in teaching speaking or communication to teenagers. You can do it in the chat. Yeah, you can type 3 problems in teaching speaking to teenagers, or at least 1 would be okay. I will choose 3 different ones. Okay, I've got too shy. I've got lack of motivation. Grammar, unwillingness to speak. Okay. Don't want to say truth. Interesting. Fear of making mistakes. Yeah, that's a huge problem. Grammar. Confidence. Afraid to make mistakes. Teachers speak too long. Oh, that's a good one. No motivation. Afraid to say, okay, afraid to make mistakes. Lack of vocabulary. Lack of vocabulary once again. Self-confidence. Mobile phones. Interesting. Difficult to express their point of view. Lack of vocabulary. Okay, I've got a lot of lack of vocabulary. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I also pointed out these problems, shyness and inhibition, finding things to say, low participations of individuals, same, yeah, a little to say or nothing to say, and use of language 1. this actually is a great problem, use of language. Oh, boring topics. That's a good one too. Use of language one. Nobody named this problem, but actually what I have with my students, I think I already told you this at previous webinars, but whenever I teach to teenagers, they never hear me speaking any other language but English, and this helps a lot. This is how you give the example, right? Even if it's a break or whatever, you still speak English. And I took it as a rule for myself, and I never use Ukrainian, Russian, or German, or anything at the lessons. And whenever I hear them speaking in another language, I just tell them that I don't understand. And even though they know I do understand, they take it as example, and they get used to it, and they feel much more relaxed, because I always tell them that I also make mistakes, but this is the room where we are allowed to make mistakes, and we are allowed to speak only English. And it's impossible to learn anything if we don't make mistakes. So we have a lot of informal moments during the lessons, and we have a lot of informal moments at the breaks where we still keep speaking English. Now, what cognitive processes are happening when we teach English, or when we communicate in English? I will just tell you that I can see all of your questions, and I will try to answer them at the end of the webinar, so we don't get distracted from the topic. All right. So what cognitive processes are happening in the brain when we are communicating? Here is a great model. So it starts with conceptual preparation. You can see it in the center. What is conceptual preparation? It's when the brain activates all the knowledge about the topic, everything. And this is everything that stays in our long-term memory. All the language, all the context of interaction, all the lexical and grammatical material, but also all of our memories and everything we know, everything we heard about this topic. And this is the first point. We conceptualize what we want to say according to a particular topic. After that, what happens? Two simultaneous processes, usually when we are talking about native speakers. This is formulation and articulation. We can also notice that many people, especially smart people, philosophers and people like that, they think first and then they articulate. So their conceptualization and formulation processes are happening in their head, and then we articulate, right? This is our favorite, think before you speak. And so we activate the knowledge about grammar, vocabulary, register, discourse, and structure. And we self-monitor ourselves at the same time. While we articulate, we activate our knowledge and skill about the language that refers to our articulation apparatus. So we prepare our tongue to sit in a specific position because it's different from another language. Yeah. So speaking in another language takes a little bit more time from retrieving the knowledge from the long-term memory, putting into a concept, formulating and articulating it. It's a long preparation, especially at the early stages. And it's okay to give students time for formulation, because they just might think that, well, we are in a hurry, I don't want to take time, people don't need to wait. And this is not even about the fear of making mistakes. It's about the whole process happening in our heads. Yeah. And if I tell you, okay, now can you talk about the development of the technology in headless CMS, for example, or whatever, yeah, and you would say, what is that? You will need to read, you will need to prepare for it, you will need to get some knowledge on this topic and then formulate it according to which vocabulary and grammar you have, and then articulate it. And it also takes a lot of time when you don't know something. So finally, when we start, okay, I have a question here. Yeah, we are not talking about grammar right now. I have 4 webinars referring to teaching grammar to teenagers. You can find the recordings, and we can have another topic later on the grammar. Or if we have time at the end of the lesson, we can talk about it. But at the moment, let's move on with communication. So some principles, how to overcome this lack of speaking in the classroom. When we ask students to say something and or to discuss something, what I do, I have the simultaneous talking in the whole classroom. It's absolutely noisy, but they are discussing. They feel freer when they can talk to each other, starting with talking to the person they have the best connection with, and then changing partners all the time. So using group and pair work is really important for communication, because this is how we exactly master this skill. We start the conversation with let's discuss, or let's talk about it, or let's make this exercise, or I'm so bored, but let's talk. Yeah, they can say whatever they want, but only in English. That's my rule I use in my classroom. And they can complain on the teacher or the lesson, but still they need to feel safe and free while they are doing this pair work. Base the activity on the easy language. Don't ask them to use the language right away. Make it in chunks. Ask them to discuss very simple and close to them topic. You wouldn't ask students of the 5th grade discuss shopping before they learned the topic. Yeah, before they know something about it properly. You wouldn't ask them to discuss how to buy an apartment or something. You would ask them to talk about their family, their school classmates, their routines at school, something their life goes around. Right? Then make a careful choice of topic and task to stimulate interest. It is important that the topics are relevant for students. And sometimes there are topics that are not so interesting, but and we have to go through these topics. Try to ask students, go from them, what is interesting for them. And make students aware of the purpose of the activity and conditions of success. So tell the students that, for example, we will learn how to talk about experience. For example, I've been to London. This is my experience. How to ask me about something. How can I say more and explain my experience. They always have what to say, but they need to say it in chunks, right? In knowing why they are going to learn present perfect. So with grammar, for example, the main problem is that very often students don't know why they need to learn grammar. And explaining the purpose and how to successfully communicate what they want to say is will be handy while explaining grammar. So can you hear me now? Okay, great. I'm so sorry. There are some troubles with the connection. Sorry for that. So let's move on. Students need to know what they have to do to gain success, and what is the bigger purpose. And for the 5th grade, most probably this would be to play a game. Yeah, the bigger purpose, to play a game at the end, or to present something at the end, or to perform something at the end. For students in the 9th, 11th grade, this would be a successful exam, or this would be a successful communication abroad, or something like that, or watching films or reading books in English. Let's move on. Speaking as a competence, what does it mean? We have speaking and we have communication. So speaking is mastering a skill in language, such as imitative, intensive, responsive, interactive, extensive speaking. What does it mean? Imitative or mimetic process, when students can imitate the language. This is something that toddlers do. Yeah, when they're very young, they don't understand, but they imitate the language. Intensive is when they already can say at least one sentence and know exactly what lexical material to use there. Responsive, when there are 2 people and they can interact, ask a question and respond to this question. Interactive, when they can have a dialogue and already manage the conversation. And extensive, when a student can have a long monological speech, like something I'm having now. Communication is more about the skill itself. It's bigger than speaking, bigger than grammar, lexis, and things like that. So communication is about using appropriate language and register for the context, facilitating interactions, participating with appropriate confidence and clarity. These are the 3 core skills within communication competency. And here we involve not only, as I already said, not even only text and discourses and situations, but also non-verbal communication, which is really important. Your facial expressions, your strategies of communication. So how you handle communication, how you handle conflicts, and so on. And also it involves gestures. Yeah, not very visible now, but I usually have many gestures while speaking, and it's much easier to understand what one wants to say when they're using gestures. Okay, let's move on. So some of the communication strategies would be recognizing and praising good learner generated models. So praising not only you used the words or you used the grammar properly, but the praising for you had a nice conversation. When you hear students saying, "Hey, how are you? Let's do this exercise," or "Let's write it down." Some words that are not there in the task themselves, but students manage their conversation and it goes in English naturally. You need to praise that and motivate students to use it again and to develop it. Then noticing, I already said about that, and using recordings to highlight progress. It would be great if you could record your students, or students could record themselves and then listen to them, to themselves, and see what they can change to have their communication in a more successful way next time. And whenever we have webinars, I always record myself and then I watch myself talking and then I improve. So if now when I'm comparing the first webinar with, for example, the webinar from the last month, I can see a difference and I can see that I learned something. The same with students. You can have a set of activities that you can record and then compare at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the week even, and at the end of the week. And this is what motivates a lot. What motivates, it's always success. But to have success, you need to know what is the criteria of success. So this is something that you need to communicate to your students. The criteria of success is that you can talk about your several experiences in your life and talk for 1 minute non-stop. Yeah, and at the end of the week, with learning present perfect, they might have their first step in success, and by the end of the year, they already master this huge skill. Okay, now how exactly do we evaluate communication? For this purpose, I would recommend using the Cambridge Life Competencies brochure. It shows exactly how you can see that your students are mastering this skill. So in terms of appropriate register for the context, there are main components such as using language appropriate for the situation, using variety of language and communication strategies, and so on and so on. So you can look through these components, and there are also example language for each component. So to understand that students use simple techniques to start a conversation in terms of facilitating interactions, you can see that by students saying their words of greetings, like "Hi, long time no see," or "Hey, what's up? Hey, how are you?" Okay, just give me a second to turn on the light. Okay, so when you have your students using these greetings naturally, you can tell that, okay, they are developing their facilitating interaction core area. And then when they are using only one expression, you can add more and more and build that up for each skill. Okay. Talking about topics, and again, if I would ask you to now think about IT technology these days and what is the best way, the best CMS to use, you would most probably you wouldn't tell me about it because it's not your area of knowledge. So the same with teenagers. It is important to talk about what matters for them. For example, if we are the teachers here, and what matters for us? Here is your task now. Choose number from 1 to 6 for yourself. You don't have to type that. Remember your number. You don't have to type that. Please don't type that in the chat. Just choose and remember. You don't have to type it. Now, according to your number, read your question. Now, you have 1 minute to type a sentence on your topic. 1 sentence, not a word, not a phrase, but 1 or 2 sentences on the topic. One minute. Okay, I have 4 first sentences. You still have 20 seconds. Okay. Okay, thanks a lot. Time's up. Thank you to those who wrote sentences. And try to notice now. Oh, okay, I have a very long paragraph here. Okay. Thank you. I guess you can see the chat, so I will not be reading these out. Now notice what exactly you wrote. You wrote your opinion on the topic. You just answered the question, what exactly you did. Is it understandable for me as someone who doesn't know which topic you chose to understand what you mean? Yeah, this is again about communication, communicative strategies. So when you want to bring your message, to carry your message and to put your message into someone's head so they understand using the language, it's not always easy to communicate it. And it's important to remember that students don't know the language. Yeah, and if I answer in 2 words, that would not open the topic. And this is what teenagers do. They see the question, they answer it, but it's not communication. And it's not intensive speaking. I actually have this exercise to work orally, but unfortunately we have, well, fortunately we have over 300 people at the webinar, but unfortunately we don't have the possibility to listen to everybody. But what I do with this exercise, I give them a topic and then I ask them to speak non-stop on this topic for 1 minute. The only rule is not to stop. If they have their topic gone to something else, no matter, it's not a problem. If they don't know what to say, ask them just to talk about their day. But it's important that it's a game, and the only rule is to speak English 1 minute, non-stop. And that's the thing. And with writing, it can be write a sentence or 2 sentences in 1 minute, and write it as fast as possible. And it can be a preparation point for speaking on the topic, because different people have very different ideas. When you write it down, we can guess what was other topic, right? And something like that. So you can create different exercises with this, with different outcomes. But my favorite would be speak non-stop, whatever you say. And this is a challenging situation in which a student has to speak no matter what, and has to speak English. And you will see that, well, they don't actually lack their vocabulary that much. Everybody works well with this exercise, because that's the point. They can speak simultaneously in groups or all together, but the point is to create this atmosphere of no matter what mistakes you're making, speak. Then, of course, we will have delayed error correction. But here we evaluate not how well they spoke, but we evaluate their ability to communicate. And sometimes, most often, I would even say, most often, it's not about English. It's a psychological source of the problem. The language barrier, the lack of motivation, they don't know what to say, they don't know the words. They do know some words, they do know in the 5th grade. So they can just say the words. The problem is they don't want to say because they're afraid of something or not confident. And that's about making this safe environment. Anyways, let's move on. At which stage of the lesson do we usually have speaking activities? Look at this exercise. What stage of the lesson is this? You can type that in the chat. What stage of the lesson? Yeah, it's written there. It's a warm-up, right? It is lead-in. So thank you. It's the beginning of the lesson. Yes, indeed, it's the beginning of the lesson. Is there communication? Okay, I guess we only have 15 minutes left, so I will go faster. It is communication. It activates background knowledge. Then students conceptualize it. Then they recycle the previous topic, the words they already know on this topic, and then we set the English-speaking environment, and we prepare students for the new topic if it's the lead-in. There is communication if you put students in pairs and ask them to talk about it. If you do it open class, ask a question. Where do you go at the weekend? And one student will say, park, cinema, something else. This is not communication. Communication is when they, in a group or in a pair work, they can actually say, hey, let's ask and answer this question. Okay, let's do it. So where do you go at the weekend? To the park. Do you like it? I do. Where do you go? I go to the cinema, and so on. Yeah, so this is communication. Now, another exercise, another example. Here is an exercise. Work in pairs, take turns to ask and answer, and we have photo C. And when we look at the picture with photo C, where is this? I guess it's this one. Bank. Yeah, it's a bank. So we have an example. Photo C, it's a bank. Then photo D, it's the cinema, and so on. Is it communication? Is it meaningful communication? Okay, I have yes, no, but I can say that no, it's not a meaningful communication. It's rather collaboration, because and learning to learn. Because here students help each other learn the words, the new vocabulary. They point at a picture, and one says, "Photo C," and I answer, "It's a bank." Now your turn. And here where communication starts. Okay, my turn. Photo D. It's I don't know, it's a park. Thank you. So thank you, your turn, and things like that is communication. When students do it, we can see that they are able to manage communication, which is one of the core areas of communication. Now, when we think about the stages of the lesson, we usually have presentation, practice, production. This is something we all learned. This was the approach, very popular in 80s and 90s. But when we think about today's students, it's important to remember that they learn in a different way. And there is another approach called discovery, consolidation, use. So how is it different from presentation, practice, and production? We don't present new vocabulary. We let students discover new vocabulary. There are pictures in the book, and there are words to define these pictures. We let students define themselves critically. This is where we involve critical thinking. Then students discovered all the words, they consolidate with the exercises, and then they use it. They don't produce the language, because usually when we present, at the end we have reproduction rather than production. So we let students use the language, what it means, to make it meaningful, to make it lifelike. And here with this exercise, picture A, it's a park or it's a bank. We have the discovery stage of the lesson, and the communicative set would be according to the discovery stage of the lesson. Then, how do we evaluate communication here? We can see that, students use the language to talk to their classmates. Hey, how are you? Okay, let's do this exercise or something. Okay, so they are using the language appropriate for the situation. Facilitating interaction. Can you say this word in English? This is about facilitating interaction. Then participating with appropriate confidence and clarity. Well, here we can't apply this one. Now, if we look at these exercises, we don't have time at all. If we look at these exercises, they are both communicative exercises, and they stand for the consolidation stage of the lesson. That's where the grammar and vocabulary are there, but still they are not using the language yet. They are practicing it. they are looking at what mistakes they are making here and how they can use it for interaction later. Then, again, if everything is great with students, they would use when, after, before. They will already have more confidence and clarity in their interaction, but still not that much. And again, if it's communication with a student, do you remember the TV interview with Jose? We ask each other, I don't, and so on and so on. I don't want to answer this question. Even this is communication with another student, and we can evaluate that as well. Now, we finally came to the use stage of the lesson. So here we have speaking, and again, we have the whole process of preparing to speak. We create something that can go to our long-term memory. So we ask students to make the map, or to take a map and make notes about ourselves. So there is a map of our city. Yeah, we're all, for example, in Cherkasy, and we have a map of Cherkasy, a little one, a simple one. And where do you live? And students work with a map. So here they can use something that would work as their knowledge on the topic. And we already went through the whole topic with vocabulary. I live next to the cinema, for example, or next to the shop or shopping mall, and so on. So we create the circumstances for their communication. And that's where students can already use the language, but the task is directed on the subject of the task itself, but not on revising grammar and vocabulary, because working with the map is already using English as an instrument. Okay, and here we can finally evaluate their confidence using this table. Now, how to boost communication and what to evaluate. I have a lot of tips here. I think I will go through a few just to show you how they work. So first is substitution tables. When you need to, especially it works well with grammar, with the new grammar. When we have a structure, sometimes when we learn our language, when we learn to speak, when we are kids, we don't learn grammar first and then we speak. We first learn how to say something, and then at school, somewhere in 5th or 7th grade, we finally come to this grammar rule, which we never knew before because it's meta language and we don't need that to communicate. So to make students use grammar appropriately, it's better first to drill the structure. For example, here I use smartphone to talk to my friends. What we can do, we can ask students to build the sentences, for example, in pairs. I show at the last one, and my partner builds the whole sentence according to play games. So I use game console to play games. I use laptop to play games. I use tablet to play games. Then we show another one, and we can play like that. Then we can make lies, tell lies, and ask our partner to understand where's the truth and where's a lie. Then we can ask students to add something else into column 3 or into column 5, so they go creative, and so on. Use humor and small talk, and it's especially at the beginning of the lesson. So students feel relaxed and can tell you a story about, I don't know, a TV show that everybody is watching these days. Well, not TV show, some YouTube show that everybody is watching these days, or what the trends on TikTok are these days, and talk about it for 2-3 minutes. And the only rule that it should be in English. And relax here stands for make mistakes. We are not at the lesson yet. We are just communicating. Later on, we will try to avoid mistakes. Moving on. Okay. Use role plays. For example, working with register. Imagine you are telling one and the same thing, like I use smartphone to play games, but you are telling it to the queen, and then you are telling it to your younger brother, to children in the kindergarten. For such exercises, you can use communication cards that you can find in the link, which I will give you at the end of the webinar in a few minutes. Another exercise is gibberish. So students can use not existing language, but try to understand what somebody is telling. That's how you can evaluate their nonverbal activity while communication. And to have to motivate students, I was always wearing some T-shirts with English phrases. For example, I have such a T-shirt here, and I guess you can see that I'm at home now because I got ill. So I have this kind of T-shirt, and you can ask students, what does it mean? Then why would someone wear it? Where could you see it? Discuss it in pairs, and then they can create their own T-shirts or their own pack of stickers. For example, here I have stickers, echo stickers for the topic of environment and so on. So wearing such T-shirts always motivates students. The exercise I gave you before is can be also used as gallery walk. So you put these questions on the walls, and each student comes to paper and writes down their answer to a question. Another one reads and writes something different, and they walk in the classroom like that. And what's always motivating is the consensograms. So you ask students, you give students statement, controversial statement. For example, all the grown-ups don't like teenagers. And you can write down fully agree, moderately agree, or don't agree at all, from 1 to 6, and then you see who has 6 on one and the same topic and who has 1, put them in pairs and ask them to persuade each other. And use these tables to evaluate their communication. Here. So what we need to remember is that teenagers are our future, that we need to be interested in what they are interested. We need to provide meaningful communication. We need to explain the reasons and the criteria of success. And we need to evaluate the whole set of skills, not only grammar, lexical material, and so on. And we need to be consistent. Talking about Prepare Ukrainian Edition. If you want to, all the examples were from Prepare Ukrainian Edition, and if you want to look at it, please go to our the Publishing Linguist UA website, where you will find all the samples of the student's book, workbook, audio, video, yearly plans, and everything you need. We also, here is the QR code for finding all the Prepare Ukrainian Edition materials. It's a great resource that we're preparing for the next new Ukrainian school year. And it goes exactly according to the program. It has all of the components. All the topics are super new, and the book was created together with Cambridge University Press, Cambridge Assessment English, and the Publishing Linguist Publishing House. Yeah, there are all the materials, and this year teachers are piloting this book for us to understand what we're going to work on next year and what to improve there. Now, there is a new resource on Publishing Linguist with all the methodology materials for teachers that might be helpful for your work. You will find all the life skills cards and brochures there. You will find the webinar recordings and everything you can do with remote education and many other materials to prepare for the new Ukrainian school year. There is also a platform for teachers created by Cambridge University Press, Cambridge Assessment English, the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, and British Council. There is a section for secondary teachers with different materials, and at the end you will be able to receive the certificate showing that you have 10 hours of professional development, and it's all official. So go to the new Ukrainian School English Teacher Development Platform to see how it can help you. These are the cards, and I also inserted them to the thank you letter, where you will find the link to the feedback form as well. And if you have any questions at the moment, I'm ready to answer those. I think we still have 3 minutes. And these are my contact details. Please follow us on Facebook to see all the news. Thank you. Thank you very much.